Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Epic Comic Book Wednesday, the world's finest collaboration between Michael K. Vaughan and myself, where we talk about some sort of comic book event or title or reprint line or whatnot every Wednesday for the three people who devoutly listen. And since I horned my way in on this whole thing, it's Mike who gets to pick what we talk about. And sometimes this works out, and sometimes it does not. And sometimes what he picks on Epic Comic Book Wednesday lines up with his own comic book reading projects. Michael K. Vaughan is a big one for utterly crackpot reading projects. An utterly crackpot, not because the reading projects aren't good, but because he's the busiest person in the world. And he still makes all these projects. And one of his projects is to read the foundational IPs of Stan Lee's Marvel Comics in their entirety until they were all impulsively canceled in a dumb company-wide event. So all of Thor, all of the X-Men, all of Fantastic Four, all of that, all of those great iconic characters. And the Fantastic Four read-along is what has kicked up this particular thing that we're talking about today. Because Fantastic Four had their own comic. It wasn't doing all that well, but it was a steadily enjoyable comic. Really good, detailed artwork by Paul Ryan. In the 1990s. So we were talking about the 30th anniversary of the Avengers. And whether it's Alexander the Great or Jesus Christ or Tom Brady, the 30s are always a rough decade. They're always rough. And when it comes to the whole of the world, the 90s were a rotten decade. Just rotten. And boy, oh boy, did that show with Marvel Comics. I don't think there was anything that Marvel did anywhere in the 90s that was good. But even if there was, they would have been little scattered exceptions here and there. Mostly Marvel was awful. And also had a midriff obsession. Male or female. So many characters started having bare midriffs in their costumes. It's just... You know that you have reached a horrible time period in comic book continuity when the mighty Thor, the storm guard of Asgard, is dressing like a combat zone male hooker. You know you're in trouble then. But this also, you would know that you were in trouble if Wolverine, one of your most powerful characters, suddenly didn't have a nose. Anyway, don't get me started on the comics of the 1990s. Marvel was a cesspool of horrible stuff in the 1990s. And the decision was made to launch a companion magazine to the Fantastic Four called Fantastic Four Unlimited. And on paper, up to a certain point, that decision looked not only good, but great. The idea was that these would be big, sprawling issues. They would be big adventures. And they would be written by Roy Thomas, the greatest superhero comic book writer of them all. And that he would give these stories a very retro, self-contained, legendary status feel to them. So the Fantastic Four, Marvel's premier first founding family super team of adventurers who went into outer space and were bombarded with radiation, and instead of dying in 4 days, they got superpowers. In these stories, on paper, you get Roy Thomas writing a grand confrontation between the Fantastic Four and, for instance, the Red Ghost and his superpowered great apes, or Annihilus from the Negative Zone, or the Wingless Wizard from the Frightful Four, or the Inhumans. You could bring on classic Fantastic Four introduced characters like the Black Panther or the Inhumans. You could have the Fantastic Four have a gigantic confrontation with Prince Namor the Submariner. Big, epic stories with Roy Thomas writing. On paper, that's what it started to look like. And that's what got me excited. And then it all went to hell. Absolutely went to hell. And it is tempting for me to say that the reason that it all went to hell was because of the artist that they chose to draw the whole thing. They chose one of the worst comic book artists of all time, Herb Trimpe, who had been, I won't say popular, because most people hated it. He drew the Incredible Hulk in the 1960s. Poorly. terribly. His anatomy is all bad. His sense of composing an action sequence is god awful, as we're going to see. And his Hulk looked like a slightly alcoholic high school gym teacher in purple pants. Just didn't look like a monster. It didn't look frightening at all. He looked like a fat purple man. He was a precursor to Lou Ferrigno. Not that I wouldn't have been interested in reading The Incredible Hulk on a regular basis anyway. The Hulk, it strikes me as a one-note character. I can't stand one-note characters. He gets angry. Okay, great. The Atom, he gets small. Okay, great. Flash, he can run fast. Okay, great. Iron Man, yeah, he wears a suit of armor. Okay, great. As opposed to Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. But anyway, I wouldn't have been tempted anyway to buy the Hulk, but I definitely wasn't tempted with Herb Trimpe doing the artwork. And in the 1990s, bless him, for whatever reason, the powers that be at Marvel decided that Herb Trimpe would draw Fantastic Four Unlimited. And when I saw that announced, I think on a Marvel, they used to have a page of Marvel news in their comic books. When I saw that, it was either that or it was Amazing Heroes. I saw the series announced. I thought, well, that's something I won't be buying. Definitely. Because as eager as I am for more Fantastic Four stories, and as much as I love what Roy Thomas usually writes, I'm not going to pay money for Herb Trimpe artwork. That is a rule that has stood me in good stead for the whole of the Marvel age of comics. I will not pay money for Herb Trimpe artwork. And I also refuse, unlike a lot of comic readers at the time, I also refused to stand there and page through anything at a comic shop. The standard refrain, hey, this ain't a library, you kids. Buy it or put it back. That was never issued at me. Even before there were comic specialty shops, and even once there were comic specialty shops. No, I go in, I decide by looking at it whether or not I want it, and I get it. If I'm disappointed by that choice, so be it. Caveat emptor. But I'm not going to read it while I'm standing there. So I never did that. So the most that I ever saw of the inside of Fantastic Four Unlimited were a few panels here and there that I saw reprinted in various comic book journals, review journals at the time. So this was my first read-through of Fantastic Four Unlimited in detail, starting with number 1. That is the cover to Fantastic Four Unlimited number 1. And you can tell, you tell a couple of things right away that aren't right. There are a couple of things that are wrong about this right away. One is that Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, is dressed like, well, I don't know, the aforementioned Combat Zone stripper. And also, Reed Richards, despite the fact that he's changing shape and so no harness makes any sense, he's not only got a harness, but a gigantic gun. If you had to summarize the 90s era of comic books, that is a good way to do it. Gigantic guns. Everybody had guns. Everybody had weird wired headpieces. Everybody had field gear. But I didn't know how bad it would get. Until I read through these issues, I didn't know how bad it would get. And it gets pretty bad. Now, I understand that some of this is Roy Thomas having to dovetail some of what he's doing to what's going on in the Fantastic Four's main comic book. That definitely crops up later in Fantastic Four Unlimited, because in the 90s, there are a whole bunch of weird things that started happening in the Fantastic Four's main book, just like they happen in every Marvel comic. Sue Richards, the mother of a mother and a wife, the first lady of Marvel Comics, started dressing, again, with a bared midriff. She started dressing like a sex pot. Totally out of character and not practical. The Fantastic Four are always both. They're always in character and they're always practical. She started dressing that way. That was one thing that happened in the 90s, mainly fueled through the misogyny of John Byrne, but we won't get into that. The whole character arc where the female character on the team goes insane with power and starts to take on a sadomasochistic sex fetish alternate identity. Notice I said the female character of the team rather than the female character of the Fantastic Four, because every time John Byrne does a team book, that happens to the female character. Whether it's Jean Grey or the Scarlet Witch in West Coast Avengers or the Fantastic Four, it doesn't matter. When he takes over a book, that he is going to do that. Anyway, but also there was a dumb storyline that crops up later in Fantastic Four Unlimited, where in some sort of encounter, Wolverine slashes the Thing's face so badly that he tears away huge chunks of flesh and scale and rock and whatnot, and the Thing takes to wearing a Man in the Iron Mask metal helmet that covers his whole face except his eyes. I do not understand. I did not understand anything of that story when I saw it. I bought that issue, and I did not understand anything of that story at all. First of all, I did not understand. I mean, I realized that Wolverine is a superhero, but superheroes surely police their own. So even if the minute Wolverine does that, Johnny Storm doesn't simply blast all the flesh off Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. Just Nova blast all the flesh off the skeleton. The flesh can't regrow from nothing. So just blast it all off because this guy just almost killed your best friend. Johnny Storm doesn't do that. But also, Ben Grimm doesn't punch Wolverine's head straight off his body, or twist it and twist it and twist it until it cannot possibly be repaired. And also the rest of the super teams, the X-Men and the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, they don't incarcerate Wolverine. They just let him go on about his business so he can maim us if he feels like it, and we've got nothing to say about it. That's ridiculous. That whole storyline was ridiculous to me. Even if you say, well, you know, we can't sink to the level of barbarism or revenge, or we're no better than the people we fight. Well, that's fine, except for the handful of characters on the X-Men or the Avengers who don't abide by those rules. Thor has killed millions of people. Millions of storm giants or trolls. Why wouldn't he simply kill Wolverine for doing that? Why wouldn't Sue Storm kill Wolverine? She certainly could. He can't live without breathing. Anyway. Sorry. It's just possible that someone made this venting in letters to the Fantastic Four at the time. But, you know, so later on in these issues of Fantastic Four Unlimited, you've got to use the Thing having his metal helmet. And you've got to have Sue Storm. Well, here, they're all, in the first issue, they are flying to Wakanda, and their craft is disabled. It's shot from the ground, so they all start to fall from a great height. Not a big deal for the Fantastic Four in the normal comic, but the problems here weren't just Herb Trimpe's artwork. Herb Trimpe's artwork is pretty bad. That is the Human Torch falling to Earth. And if you're wondering, well, okay, why doesn't he have human anatomy? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't. Also, if you're thinking, well, that wouldn't save him, you're right. It wouldn't. But not only is Herb Trimpe's artwork terrible, but Roy Thomas is off his game here. Consistently and weirdly off his game. His Fantastic Four in this comic does not seem like the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards is a dimwit, for instance. He's useless to the team. At one point in one of these issues, I think I'll show you the panel, they're facing a dilemma, and Sue says to her husband, the smartest man in Marvel Comics universe, do something, and Reed actually yells out, I'm thinking. And also there's the question of Sue herself. Let me see if I can get you a good example. Yeah, Sue has been working out. She is not Johnny Storm's sister. She's his older brother. Let's say Sam Storm. She's been working out. And look at what you've got here. Look at this artwork. It's just so embarrassingly awful. I will say, I'll be interested to. I haven't watched Mike's video. I'm sure it's up already. He has to go to work. He's a busy guy, so I'm sure he posted it already. But I'll have to see what he says about why this Herb Trimpe artwork is so different from his usual bad artwork. This is a different kind of bad artwork. This, if you looked at that in the 1970s, the early 1970s, you would never have said that's Herb Trimpe. You would have said it's bad, but you wouldn't have said it was Herb Trimpe. So I'd be curious to know why he did this. I have a suspicion, but I don't know anything about this book, so I don't know if it's real. But I want to show you. You've got these. Okay, well, you've got the Black Panther, who is not involved in why the craft was shot down. But you've also got all throughout these issues. There are visual double entendres that I can't help but think are unconscious, unintended. Like, for instance, this. I don't know what that character is doing, but only one thing is going to cross your mind. But here we get the Black Panther leaping into action, and this gives me my clue as to what Herb Trimpe might be doing here. Because this doesn't look like his artwork at all. But notice, Black Panther has, those are his legs. They are as big as individual human beings. His thigh muscles are as big as individual human beings. But those are supposed to be his legs. But those are also supposed to be his feet. They barely exist at all. They're little pegs. They're baby's feet. And there is someone, a hallmark of the wretched 1990s, there is someone who pretty much epitomizes how awful comics were in the 1990s, who drew people exactly like this. Rob Liefeld drew people exactly like this. And has never learned. He was one of the worst artists. He's one of the worst artists who has ever drawn comic books. He was wildly successful, widely popular, and still is. For some reason, he still is, even though he can't draw human anatomy and is the only artist ever to give Captain America breasts. Is it possible that Herb Trimpe was told to imitate Rob Liefeld? Rob Liefeld's artwork is so bad but so popular that is it possible that he was told to imitate? I don't know. I don't know. I know that these people have the pinched ferret faces of Liefeld characters, and I know that the action sequences are all so poorly designed. But some of that is definitely Herb Trimpe. Just a completely boring lateral resolution like that. That's all through his Hulk work that I think is his most praised work. So it's not all just imitating. But I wonder if he was... Yeah, look at this. This is just ridiculous. If you didn't know better... First of all, if you didn't know better, you would not assume that was Herb Trimpe. But if you didn't know better, you might assume it was Rob Liefeld. That was Rob Liefeld. You might assume that. It's so close to it. And I wonder if that's an accident. Or if maybe the powers that be maybe got to Roy Thomas and said, you know, I know you've got this story to tell, but we want this to do really well, and so you have to imitate what's out there and what's hot, and it's this Liefeld guy. So you need to do that. I don't know. Look at Sue. Look at Sue Storm. Sue Richards. That is utterly ridiculous. It's just utterly ridiculous. Why does she look like that? These characters have a style book. They're supposed to have a style book. This is our team. That is the Fantastic Four. The thing is 4 feet tall. These things are supposed to have a style book, which means you can't make characters look just any way you want. They have to conform to what they've looked like before. And that doesn't happen anywhere in here. Not just with the Fantastic Four, with anybody else. But do we have another good example? Oh God, they're all over the place. These are just so bad. It's just the artwork here is just so bad that I can't help but think. Naturally, I think. I mean, look at this. You get a pinup at the back of issue number 2 that is Ernie Chan. And you just want to sigh with relief because it's actually good. Nothing's off book, nothing's out of proportion, nothing's weird. And then you go back to this Herb Trimpe nonsense. Look at that. Look at that. What on earth? I firmly believe that the reason why Fantastic Four Unlimited has been completely memory hold is solely because of this ridiculous artwork. I firmly believe that. That this is just unsalvageable, even as a stylistic experiment on the part of a veteran artist. There's Sue Richards doing something. She's doing something, and again, it's pretty suggestive. But why does she look that way when no one in the world looks that way? Why? Why does she look that way? I have no idea. I have no idea at all. There's another panel that I wanted to show you where Reed Richards is stretching and has weird muscles in his back that no one actually has, whether they have got stretching powers or not. Well, this isn't the panel. This will do. What's going on there? What's going on there? You're supposed to know basic anatomy to get a job drawing comic books, even if you change that anatomy. What on earth is that? Does he have some sort of symbiont? I don't know. And that just continues all throughout these issues. I think there's a couple of issues at the end, maybe one or two issues at the end where there's a substitute artist, but it's mostly Herb Trimpe. You do get tantalized with a great artist. I forget his name, Castellani, something like that. He did a couple of issues of Superman that were really good. He does the covers for some of these, and they're awesome. Absolutely incredible. He does one with the Silver Surfer on it. I think his has the Submariner one as well. And you're just salivating, thinking, what would this be like if he drew these? And I think that this would have a lot higher standing. I doubt that Marvel will ever reprint this junk, but I think they would have a lot higher standing if every issue had better artwork. I really do think that, but it wouldn't have been the sole fix, because the writing is bad too. The Thing is a simpleton. Reed Richards, for the limited time that he's in here, is an idiot. He's totally ineffective. And worst of all, Sue Richards is... Yeah, there we go. There's the Thing with his iron helmet on and breasts. Sue is totally out of character in these issues. She's bloodthirsty. She's shrill. She's argumentative. She's also stupid. Not anything like she was being written in the Fantastic Four book that was coming out at the same time. Not anything like that. And I can't help but think that... I know the rationale here on Marvel's part was, we've got a Fantastic Four book, but they're really popular, so we'll make another one. And since we're going to make another one, we don't want the exact same creative team. So we're not going to... I think that Paul Ryan, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, I think Paul Ryan could have probably drawn Fantastic Four Unlimited along with Fantastic Four. And then it would have been something to remember. Anyway, even with the bad writing. And the bad writing is all over the place. The villains aren't in any kind of good characterization either. There are all sorts of little problems that crop up that are dumb and persistent. They're not just in one issue. They're dumb and persistent. All through these issues. I think there are 12 issues here. And all through them. When Sue Richards does something, so she has created an invisible pole to slide down to attack the villains, or she has sent out a flurry of invisible daggers to strike at the villains or whatnot. Every single time she does that, almost every single time, the villain in question will say, "Oh, your pole won't help you here," or "Oh, those daggers are going to bounce off my force field," when they can't see them. They have no idea what she's doing. It's just bad writing. That's all. And probably worst of all, there's no sense of family at all. And that is it sounds hokey, but that is the sum and essence of the Fantastic Four that distinguishes them. I'm sorry. There's an Ant-Man action panel for you. Which of us hasn't had dates like that? It's just... when you're looking at something like this, when the artwork is this bad, it pulls you out of the story. I'm perfectly willing to grant... Yeah, look at that. I don't know this artist's name, but look how beautiful that is. God help us. What might have been. It sounds hokey, but the Fantastic Four is a family. That's what distinguishes them from other superhero teams, is that they're a family. There's no feeling like that here. They're hateful strangers. They can't stand each other, which is odd. It's an odd mistake for Roy Thomas to make. So, as much as I would like to put all the blame on one of the worst comic book artists of all time, who here seems to be imitating another of one of the worst comic book artists of all time, I can't do it. Even with great artwork, I think fans would still have thought, this doesn't feel right at all. I don't know, off the top of my head, if Mike's project of reading all of the Fantastic Four includes Fantastic Four Unlimited. I think it might. I think that might be why he suggested it, because he's actually going to read this crap. The things he does for his reading projects. I have them, and now I'm going to be very happy never to look at them again in my life. It's just a whole bunch of missed opportunities. You have a great comic book writer. You have a great era. So you have all these legendary Fantastic Four villains and side characters you can bring back and use. They aren't committed in any other way. They aren't dead or sex changed or anything like that. And you You pile on dumb Herb Trimpe artwork with its weird anatomy and weird. Artists can be different. Obviously, obviously, artists can be different. I myself am a big fan of a Marvel artist named Frank Robbins. You won't find many fans of Frank Robbins. A long time ago, I was a fan of an artist named Don Heck when it wasn't fashionable to be a fan of Don Heck. And I still maintain that. Frank Robbins is a little harder to defend, but still. They have very distinct styles, especially Frank Robbins. They have distinct styles. I understand that. I understand that I'm not always going to like somebody's style. But this isn't a style. This is just bad. And it pulls you out of the story. You want to be invested in what's going on, but then a mysterious character pulls off their hood, and the text, the actual characters talking, reveals that it's Agatha Harkness, the sorceress, the witch from Salem, who was the nanny of the Reed Richards and Sue Richards' child, Franklin Richards. But that's not what you're seeing. When you get to that panel, that's not what you're seeing. There's a reveal, and there's a face, and it looks just like an insect. It doesn't look human at all. And it's not that something has happened to Agatha Harkness. It's that you're supposed to just ignore the fact that the artist can't draw an old woman. The narration all around is saying, oh my God, it's Agatha Harkness. But your eyes are saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. Don't look anything like Agatha Harkness. For me, that destroyed things. I'm perfectly willing I will watch Mike's video. Maybe he had a more charitable interpretation than I do. I perfectly free to admit that I read comics for the artwork. I'm happy to go back and pay attention to the story, but if the artwork is bad, I drop the book. No matter how well written it is, I drop it. So I could not enjoy this at all. All I could think of was the road not taken, all these missed opportunities. So we'll hope for better next time. You never know. With Michael K. Vaughan, you never know. But I'll wrap this up for now. I do not recommend, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.